By Josh Edelson, AFP, Getty Images. When Harvard agent Mark Zuckerberg bragged to a friend over Instant Messenger that he'd obtained over 4,000 emails, pictures, addresses, thanks to the dumb fucks among his peers who had submitted them, he may not have known that such data stores would one day become Facebook's bread and butter, the very essence of its seemingly indomitable business model. As Zuckerberg's dorm room curio expanded into a global empire, Facebook became a one-stop shop for advertisers and third-party organizations eager to fork over billions to align with that very data, to utilize Facebook's extraordinary capacity to micro-target audiences and aggregate massive caches of information for quite specific use. And though the company has been repeatedly berated over privacy concerns, and despite the fact that it endured a rapturous flogging after its platform was utilized to facilitate Donald Trump's election, the core dynamic of its business model has been largely underappreciated, at least until last week, when the New York Times and The Guardian reported that Cambridge Analytica, the controversial data analytics firm hired by the Trump campaign, had hijacked 50 million people's Facebook data. Facebook's crisis, by far the most poignant of its 14-year history, was in some ways an existential product issue masquerading as a communications nightmare. The company has been harvesting data for commercial purposes for years. It's only now, in a Trumpian universe, that people are comprehending the profound consequences of that power. Facebook's apology rollout has, at times, reflected the discomfort of this reality. On the one hand, Zuckerberg has apologized for the breach, and promised to further limit the Facebook data that third-party apps are allowed to access. "We expect there are others," the company said in a full-page ad that ran in more than half a dozen print newspapers last weekend. On the other, the company has reminded users that they consciously signed over their data in agreements. More notably, it seemed to underestimate the enormity of the blowback. "Somehow, they weren't prepared for this," tech PR firm founder Ed Zitron told me. "Part of the problem," Zitron said, "is the lingering glow of the good press Facebook, and, indeed, the entirety of Silicon Valley, basked in for years. This is the company that only a few years ago was getting so much effusive, positive press. Even their PR person was getting positive press," he said. "All they had to do was vaguely make a noise, and people would say nice things. There was a very pally relationship." The Cambridge Analytica scandal, he said, represented the confluence of two factors. Facebook is being hit by the countercultural wave in Silicon Valley, compounded by doing something egregiously bad. It's the rubber band effect of years of very effusive, big, wet kisses about how great Facebook is. They've never been attacked, and they're certainly not prepared for it. They had to teach Mark to be a human at one point. One tech investor put it more succinctly, "The communication is a problem, but I think that's more than just hoping the problem goes away, as opposed to admitting there are issues and perhaps dangers in the product that they are selling." Facebook, however, has consistently avoided shouldering responsibility for the abuse of its tools by users. When a ProPublica investigation revealed, in 2016, that Facebook advertisers could target housing ads exclusively to Caucasian users, the company promised to address the issue. But a year later, the same problem occurred. Zuckerberg, too, has appeared reluctant to accept his role as arbiter. "What I would really like to do is find a way to get our policies set in a way that reflects the values of the community, so I am not the one making those decisions," he said in an interview with Recode last week. "I feel fundamentally uncomfortable sitting here in California in an office making content policy decisions for people around the world. To some extent, this hands-off approach has alienated users, who have grown increasingly skeptical that Facebook has their best interests at heart." The platform's user numbers in the US and Canada were in decline before the Cambridge Analytica fiasco, and one tech investor agreed that Facebook has a potential user growth problem on its hands. But this person also posited that the company has staying power, based on how thoroughly it's wormed its way into the lives of the people who use it. "If I lost Facebook, I would lose connection with thousands of people in my life," they said. "Those connections are what make Facebook viable. They're what keep users from deleting their accounts, and what in turn draw advertisers like moths to a lamp." But if Facebook, whether by regulation or public pressure, was forced to let other, third-party developers find a way to export users' networks, it could kick off a dangerous arms race. It would basically start the social media wars all over again, this investor said. They'd be in very dangerous territory. Such an outcome may not be so far-fetched. On Monday, the Federal Trade Commission confirmed that it had opened a non-public investigation into Facebook, sending the company's stock into a downward spiral that continued into Tuesday evening. A group of 37 attorneys sent Zuckerberg a letter requesting information on his company's privacy safeguards, and those turned down British lawmakers' request to testify in person, opting to send 2 other Facebook execs in his stead. Sources say he believes he is likely to testify in Washington. I don't see how the tides don't end up turning for Mark or Sheryl Sandberg, or maybe both of them after this, another investor told me. Certainly in the court of public opinion, but possibly internally, too. Think of the engineers trying to switch from working on Facebook's platform to Instagram or WhatsApp instead, just to get away from the stigma of Facebook right now.